Greetings, I'm Shad coming at you from Atitlan Organics here in Sununa, Lake Atitlan, Guatemala. Today we're going to be talking about alternative ways to keep happy, healthy chickens no matter where you live in the world. Before we get into that, I want to start by looking at ecosystems. So I'm going to paint you a picture. Imagine there's a raccoon walking along in a forest and all of a sudden, boom, it drops over and dies. What happens? Within a matter of minutes, things start to come and use the resources that are from that raccoon body. So maybe some birds come and get some of the fur, some scavengers eat some of the meat, and within a couple of days, all of the raccoon has been worked back into the forest. This is an example of a healthy ecosystem and of an active decay cycle. But let's look at an alternative. What happens if that same raccoon is walking in Walmart parking lot, falls over and dies? Then what happens? The next day, maybe some flies come and lay some eggs, maybe a couple of seagulls or pigeons or some weird birds come. It starts to smell really bad. It could potentially get people sick, and eventually someone has to come and expend energy and effort to clean it up because that resource has become a waste. And that's the big difference. An active decay cycle has no waste. All potential waste gets worked back into the system. But what does this have to do with chickens? Well, let's consider our typical backyard chicken setup. Everyone recommends that first you build a chicken coop and then you give them a range, maybe sectioned off by fence, or maybe they don't have any fence and they're just allowed to go wherever they want. But what happens over time? On the first day, the chickens go out and they eat all of their favorite plants and all of their favorite bugs. They go back in. The next day, they go and eat their next favorite plants and bugs. As soon as their favorite plants start to grow again, the chickens immediately come and eat them back down. And over time, the chickens change the composition of plant species that are growing on their range. Now, the range is no longer providing a nutritional benefit for the chicken. Furthermore, their manure and constant scratching burns the organic matter and creates bare patches and hard ground in the range. It starts to look less like a forest and more like a Walmart parking lot, which leads to unhealthy or sick land, which eventually leads to sick chickens. So if free range is not an acceptable solution, then what are our alternatives? As long as you have enough space to build a small chicken coop, you can keep happy, healthy hens. How do we do this? We will build the active decay cycle directly underneath the chickens. So let's go check this system out. So here we are inside the deeply bedded stationary chicken house. And as we said before, we're actually going to build a compost pile underneath our chickens. So before we go any further, we need to talk about the basic recipe of compost. Every compost recipe has two basic types of ingredients. On the one hand, we have carbon. Organic material that is dry and brown is considered high in carbon. Examples might be straw or hay, wood chips, dried leaves, or even newspaper or cardboard. On the other hand, we have nitrogen. Nitrogen is green and wet organic matter. All manure and urine, as well as green plant material and kitchen scraps, are high in nitrogen. If we mix them together at 30-to-1, we have a perfect recipe for hot compost. If you're wondering what 30-to-1 actually means, I strongly recommend that you check it out online and look around a little. This principle is very important in the composting process. In short, every organic material has an inherent carbon to nitrogen ratio. For example, this cotton shirt has one, or wood or leaves. All material has a carbon to nitrogen ratio, and you want to mix them so that they balance to 30-to-1. In a more practical setting, what does that mean? It means to follow your nose. Nitrogen is the waste. It smells bad. Carbon is the diaper. We use the carbon to balance the nitrogen. We use the diaper to absorb the waste. So when in doubt, add more carbon. And when you do this, you always get a great compost pile. As you can see here, we're now in the deep bedding. This is a real live compost pile that's being turned and maintained by our chickens. What happens is as we add organic matter, carbon to the top, and they add nitrogen, 3 layers start to form. The top layer is what they're scratching in. It contains things like the straw or wood chips that we add, even sticks that go in there, as well as leftover kitchen scraps. Some green material that's left over as well also gets left in here. That's the top layer, and that's what the chickens are actively scratching. The next layer down, you can see from about here to here, is partially composted organic material, and it's really hot. And if you smell, it doesn't smell at all. It smells like a forest because it is an ecosystem. And this is where all the microorganisms are, and this is what the chickens are actually trying to get to. The bottom layer is about where I've dug down to. Again, this is 1 meter deep. When we get down to the bottom layer, what actually forms is a layer of dark, rich, finished compost. So this compost is amazing for the garden. You can put it anywhere. You can put it on fruit trees, vegetable garden, anything. And this is all over the bottom of the chicken house. You get about 10 to 20 centimeters of this at the bottom, and each layer above that is about 30 or 40 centimeters. All right, so let's wrap this video up by looking at 2 things. Let's look at how to build this type of house, and let's look at how to manage it. Depending on where you live, you'll have to take special precautions for predators or for weather or climate conditions. Beyond that, there's only really 2 special design aspects of this type of chicken house. The first is that you need to have a wall or some sort of container that holds in your deep bedding. This wall goes down 1.20 meters, and we recommend a minimum of 70 centimeters of depth. The other design aspect is that we want to make sure that our poop always falls into the bedding and not onto hard surfaces. This is the Walmart parking lot. We want to make sure that the raccoon always dies in the forest. So as you can see, there is a design flaw in our house. We should have put the walls here. Now, because we didn't, every morning we come in with our broom and we sweep off all our chicken poop. As with all chicken houses, you need to provide your hens with a few basic necessities to keep them happy and comfortable. You need some perches for them to sleep on that are raised above the ground. You need a feeder or 2. You need nest boxes, and you also need a waterer. And we recommend that all of this stuff should be raised above ground level. That way no compost gets kicked into the feed or water. We recommend using chicken wire that allows the chicken poop to fall straight down into the bedding to build the tables and supports. It's a good idea to make 50% of your roof out of transparent material to allow sunlight in. Don't forget that chickens also need to be protected from drafts, but do like some airflow during hot weather. Before you build your house, you have to ask yourself one question. How many hens do you want? The number of hens will determine the size of your house. We recommend 2 hens per square meter. As for the management of this house, in addition to chicken feed and water, we recommend that twice daily you bring your kitchen scraps and all the garden waste right into the house and throw it into the compost. We also recommend that once daily you bring a carbon source and spread it over the wetter spots in the area. We like to make sure that the house isn't too wet or too dry. Compost needs moisture to really get started and really heat up, so oftentimes we water the house. We also like to help the chickens by turning the compost a little bit for them each morning. This not only helps the compost to heat up, but it provides the chickens access to deeper layers in the compost so that they can go find new treats to eat and help us in the composting process. One of the most important parts of the management of this house is that you have to practice the 2-day poop test. The way you do that is first you find a real fresh, steamy chicken turd, and you make a mental note of where it is. Then you come back the next day and you look and see if you can find it. If you can find it, then your house has failed the 2-day poop test. The goal is that within 24 hours, all of the poop is worked back into the bedding. Imagine that. On only 2 meters by 2 meters, you can get yourself 8 hens and produce over 2,000 eggs and over 5 cubic meters of compost every year. Say what? For real. So if you're down with happy, healthy hens, tons of hot compost, and super awesome eggs, check out our design and build your own today.